If you don't use alcohol markers, I'm going to assume your drawings look like this, which is why today I'm going to show you exactly how to use them to create something truly awesome. So we need a sketch, which I have a separate video on, which I would highly recommend you watch after this one, of course. Now, before we continue, you should erase all your grid or construction lines, which I stupidly didn't do. So I ended up sealing all the graphite behind the marker base, and there was absolutely nothing that I could do about it. Now, what markers to use? Don't use Copics with their elegant brushstrokes, as they're just too good for marker bases, and they're rather pricey as well. Your best shot is Spectrum Noir markers, or my personal favourite, Winsor & Newton Pro markers, but any semi-decent alcohol marker should do the trick. Now, most markers will be dual tipped, with a chiselled and a bullet nib. Use the chisel tip for the larger areas, so you end up with less streakiness. The first colour I use is a black to outline all the darkest sections. Be careful with this, as it's quite hard to rectify any mistakes. And if you do question whether an area actually is a darkest section, just leave it for later, and we can instead use some dark-ish greys to fill it in instead, which are a lot easier to rectify if you do mess up. I clean this up using Unipin fine liners, which is especially important on car drawings where the edges need to be nice and crisp. A fine liner also helps outline the darkest sections that the Pro marker was too big to do. For instance, the details in the headlights and the wheel alloys. And these come in lots of different nib sizes, giving you loads of control over your line thickness. I can now start to smooth out the blends between the darkest and lightest sections using a variety of greys. Now, a really simple way to look at blending goes like this. So imagine you have your darkest and lightest areas and boxes in descending tones of grey. You then draw the same boxes, but slightly shifted to the left in my case, or so that the lighter colours go into the darker ones. This is a very simple overview of how to blend tonal values. And with practice, you can modify this to make it more extreme by skipping out different tones, but instead making the boxes overlap a bit more. This is better suited for smaller areas, or to give very quick changes in tonal value. This way you can make things appear more shiny and give them higher contrast, which is vital to make a drawing pop. If you're finding this useful, don't forget to subscribe. For car drawings and most surfaces that are outside, you want to use cool or ice greys, as they have slight blue hints in them, helping to show the reflection from the sky. Warm greys, however, are better suited for brown subjects, like brown dogs or other joyous brown things. So now the main body is very yellow. So I start by getting out all my yellows or all the markers that have a Y on the cap. And I test what the colours actually look like on a scrap piece of paper, because sometimes the colour on the wrapping on the marker isn't necessarily true to the colour that you get from the marker. I can then do a quick comparison between what colours I have and what colours are on the reference image. Starting off with the darkest yellow, I jot in all the bits of that colour. I then use a mid-tone yellow, which isn't particularly dark, but isn't particularly light, hence a mid-tone, and is great for blending between the darkest yellow that I've currently got on and the lightest yellow that I'm about to put on. Now, the lightest colour is great because you can just go and blend all the colours that you've already got on there and also fill in the majority of the white section. However, there are certain bits of the white of the paper that I want to leave to make sure they're as light as possible in the final piece. The side of the car is cast in shadow, so I call upon some browny oranges to darken it up. I do this as using greys to darken the colour can really reduce the vibrancy of that colour, making it appear dull and washed out. You can see me here putting some blue on the windshield just to indicate the reflection from the sky. And the reason that I do all of this is to make sure the coloured pencils look as vibrant as possible, as they're not being tinted by the white of the paper. If you're interested in any of the materials I've used today, I have them linked down in the description. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time with more creative content.